Hello, welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So something a little bit different this week. We're going to take a little bit of a different take on this. So I'm now actually moving forward, I'm not bouncing around, and we're around this time in Magic's history. So I hope now to just purely go forward set by set by set. So as a set comes in, to see what was happening in terms of, more often than not, tournament decks. And the reason why this week is interesting is because we've got a really unusual tournament situation that arose. So let's have a look what that is. So Pro Tour Atlanta. So it was the only Pro Tour ever to host an individual sealed deck competition as the main event. My understanding is they had previously run like pre-releases with an event. But this was the first time that you actually had, or the only Pro Tour where they had individual sealed deck as the actual main event. And also, the cards were all previously unknown to the players because they used Mirage product and it hadn't officially been released yet. The downside of this is, because I think of the nature of the format, I had problems finding deck lists, and you'll see why in a moment. But I, however, did manage to find one. This one. If you're not familiar with the sealed deck format, then I'll include a link which describes it. But at a very basic level, you're opening the equivalent of 6 booster packs. It's interesting to go into this because there's other combinations here, like there's tournament packs, for instance, that were used in combination with boosters at certain sealed events. The other thing with sealed events is it's the sort of go-to format for pre-releases. If anybody's attended like a pre-release, that'll, more often than not be the format that's played. But if you attend a pre-release nowadays, you get, again, you get 6 booster packs, but you sometimes have this like pre-release pack, which contains a few extra bits and bobs in it. So they play around with it, but essentially it's the equivalent of 6 booster packs. And those are all the cards you get. You may again have to introduce additional land, basic lands, in order to obviously have the right amount of land in your mana base. But those are the only additional cards that you can add in. And the other thing is, as you go through the block, the composition of the 6 booster packs changes. So at that point it was all Mirage, but any pre-releases subsequently would have had some of the 6 packs swapped out with the next set in the block, and so on. And you can see here that before the release of Conflict, players would open a tournament pack and 2 sealed booster packs. Tournament packs were discontinued after that release. So it goes into quite detail. The only thing you have to be careful with these MTG wiki articles is a lot of these links now are broken, unfortunately, because of when Wizards of the Coast restructured the website. So many of these don't work anymore. But I'm going to include a link here. It's a bit more of an in-depth. Well, I say in-depth. There's a bit more of a bit more information about the actual event there. And also, I'll include a link to the final there. Now, of course, the final doesn't feature the deck I'm talking about, unfortunately, and again, it's difficult to find information about decks around this time. It would have been nice if I'd been able to find either the Darwin Castle or the Frank Adler deck list, but that wasn't to be within the time frame. So what I'm going to do for this episode as well is I'm not going to go through all the cards. There's a lot of one-offs in here. I'll explain my sort of logic behind this. I'm going to avoid the instants and the sorceries pretty much. I mean, I'll just do a quick overview of the deck here, but I want to mainly focus on the permanents. And there's lots of different reasons why that's the case. The main one being is a lot of these cards, or cards similar to them, I've already spoken about on various occasions in previous episodes, like Ray of Command, Power Sink, Dissipate, Boomerang. Then we've got things like Chaos Charm, which I know the charms have come up several times now. Cards like Cinder Cloud, Fog, Effects and Fog have come up. Flare, you know, like in terms of a 1 damage card, which then has a cantrip. So yeah, avoid those in this episode, but I am going to talk about Grinning Totem, Moss Diamond, these. We'll have a look up for these. Nothing spectacular in the mana base of this one. I've got cards from Mirage. We'll have a look at some of the artwork for that. And then these creatures. Also interesting here, we're at a point in Magic's history when non-creature spells were generally more powerful in sets than creature spells. Now, if you were putting together a sealed deck today, your creature count would be a lot higher unless you were trying to do something, you know, niche, or there was a combo that you're building from a particular card pool you had. So you can see we've only got 9 creatures in here, as opposed to, you know, something in the region of, I don't know, 12 to 17 or whatever the recommended amount of creatures is in. And remember, sealed decks as well would be 40 cards, not 60. Also, you notice there's no sideboard because the rest of the card pool becomes the sideboard. So, you know, once you've played your first game, you can swap out the deck, you know, cards in the deck with that. I'm hesitant here because it's quite possible some of the sealed rules may have changed over time in terms of how much you can do that. My understanding was that you could get to a situation where you might be playing a completely different deck at the start of a pre-release than at the end. But I'm not sure exactly what the rules were for this particular event, because remember, this was at a pro tour. Yeah, so pretty unique. So I thought that might be interesting to go through. And I think I've got them all here. I'm just looking here. Grinning Totem. So I'm going to go through with them up here, but just overview. So there's 2 artifacts in the deck. You can see 1 of 3 enchantments, a sorcery, 17 lands. It's a 40 card deck. 9 creatures, 1 of each. 8 instants, 1 of each. That's basically it. There's the mana curve. You can see there, pretty good mapping mana to pips, mana producers to pips. But the most important thing, the basic land artwork. Yeah, I love the artwork in this set. It's funny, as I look at the forests, and I've always been they've been my least favourite and I'm trying to put my finger on it, and I don't know whether it's just, I suppose the sets of artwork are just so different in terms of, you know, the within themselves it's fine, but between they're quite different. But obviously you can see here that each colour of mana is a different artist. But over time I've grown to like these a lot more, and I particularly like this one actually. This is my favourite here. But I think I've mentioned that I do like the plains. And I think in order, probably I'd say, so yeah, the swamps. Maybe swamps, plains, mountains next. They're difficult, really. And islands and forests, perhaps in that order. Yeah. See, now I can't. It's funny. Every time I go through this, well, maybe I like the other one slightly more. But there is something, I think, when I see the plains, it does really make me smile. These don't make me smile so much, I suppose. But yeah, I think these two here, this thing really is interesting with the little eyes looking out. It's funny though. I'd be interested to know what everybody else's favourites is, because it is a difficult set to decide. But I think there's something about this card. Maybe it's easier if I go through and sort of say what's my favourite from each of the colours. So this one here, this one in blue. Yeah, see, normally the eyes would have it, but I think this one is the swamp. This one here is the mountain. And this one here for the forest, something like that. Okay, let's dive in. So Wall of Roots, I think we've seen this before. It's been printed a few times, although mainly in, like, you know, outside of the regular sets. So in pre-cons, in special sets like Iconic Masters, it's been printed. It was on the Time Spiral Time Shifted sheet, but it has this interesting ability on it where it starts out as a 0/5, it's 1 and a green, and then you can put a -0, -1 counter on Wall of Roots, and green activate only once each turn. So it's got these weird asymmetric counters, and we've definitely spoken about this before, these deprecated PT counter things. This also is a mana dork. I'll look at that first, but you know, mana dorks are things like Land War Elves, the Mears, there's loads of those, and then these other ones that produce, you know, there's lots of things that produce mana in really interesting ways as well throughout the history of Magic. And if you were to, you know, generally it's low cost creatures as well, mana dork. But if I was to go through release date, ascending, and do our favourite is the first printing. There we go, Birds of Paradise, Land War Elves, Elves of Deep Shadow. So yeah, what you get these mana dorks that produce different colours than the colour of mana. I don't know if they ever feature, they include things that filter mana. I don't think they do as being a mana dork. There were some cards when I did the Friday artwork video last week. I think, I don't know if there was one there or not. I may be thinking of a different card with a similar name where, you know, it's a black card and it takes colour of one mana and converts it into colour of another. Any mana of one colour and then specific to colour of another. So they're more like mana filters. And within mana dorks, that also includes cards which indirectly can generate mana or get you in a position where you can get mana because they untap lands. So that's included in here in the tags in Scryfall. There's the mirrors there. But the other thing I was going to look at was the other tag. A little while since we've looked at this, which is this deprecated power toughness counter, which has always fascinated me. So in the early days, Magic used all kinds of power toughness modifying creatures. Nowadays, it just sticks with +1, +1, -1, -1. But you can see, just looking at these, we've got 38 cards which, you know, mess around with the symmetry. But also, you can see here we've got like a +2/+2 thing going on. The other thing that's interesting is this, what would you call it? Like cumulative fire breathing. I don't know if even that's a term, but you know, instead of saying I'll pay X and then you get X, you get +1/+0 until end of turn, and then you can invest more mana into that. You can trigger, well, not so much X, but it's a mana sink where the amount of mana you put in is I'm trying to think of the right word here, but yeah, so for each mana that you put in, you get +1/+0, but that lasts till end of turn. Here it's interesting, we've got a few where it's adding, you know, it's adding +1/+0 counters, and it's, you know, it's X. You can invest a certain amount, and then you can get that many counters. Those counters may stay on there, but you can see there's a clause here which says, oh, that it can't exceed a certain number through that method. So you might see, you know, echoes of things here, which last, and on other cards would last until end of turn, but because they're on counters, they stay there. But you may also notice there's certain clauses to stop things just getting a bit out of hand on here. But again, you know, there's ways that you can abuse this. You'll notice the whole clockwork thing as well, which we've looked at before. So Dream Fighter, it's 2 and a blue, it's a 1/1. Whenever Dream Fighter blocks, always blocked by a creature, Dream Fighter, and that creature phase out. So yeah, phasing was a thing in the set. So let's just see how much phasing there is. how much was around at that time. And how much did that stick around through the block and yeah, going forward. We'll probably find that it may have been periodically introduced into sort of special sets here and there. So you can see it's specifically named here. This one, Obliette. Yeah, I can't say that. Sorry. It was done a different way. It might even, I wonder if it just mentions pseudo phasing. It does mention phasing actually. What does it say on the... Yeah, so here you can see it's been errated. Obliette. Maybe that's how you say it. Okay, so here's the cards from Mirage. I nearly said Tempest there. Hopefully I haven't been saying Tempest in this episode. I tend to get the two muddled up. So there's the Mirage cards. And you can see there's quite a number here that have phasing on them. Including a legendary. Yeah, all the way through, you can see that. And then we get Visions, which would have been the next set in the block, which will be featuring that era in tournament decks next week. So that'll be interesting to look at, see what Visions sort of added to the mix. And you can see it carried on. And then there's Weatherlight, which is the last set in the block. But you can see here that we've got Commander 17. So there's a big gap here. I mean, this is what Vanguard, and this is an unset, unhinged. But beyond that, it looks like we've got the odd cards here and there. So there's Tarifi. We did talk about M21 in a previous set, Musings, when we got there. And then what's that? That would be Modern Horizons. There was a card. Few in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. You can see there. AFC, that was the Commander product. And then again, yeah, like a couple here and there. So Midnight Haunt. Neon Destiny. Looks like we've got some more Commander product actually. Yeah. Oh, Streets of New Capenia. Yeah, sorry, Streets of New Capenia. I'm not quite so good with the newer set abbreviations. So yeah, they just smatter facing here and there, probably to fit in, make it an interesting twist to a set theme. But yeah, so outside of Mirage block, you don't really see it that much. Just comes up in odd sets here and there. Yep, also is blocked by creature, dream, fighter, and that creature phase out. So also the creature type's been errated on here as well if you look at the card. So it's now a human soldier as opposed to a soldier. You'll notice with earlier cards as well this tendency to have just a single creature type. Gibbering Hyenas. 2 and a green, 3/2, can't block black creatures. So I suppose for the time, a 3/2 that was a 3-drop might be considered to be quite powerful. So the downside is that it can't block black creatures. It's almost like it's got, I suppose, a form of fear on it, but you know, fear. It's fearful rather than a card that gives fear. Yeah. Yeah, drawback, restricted blocker. Sure, there's lots of those in Magic, but yeah, you get this, you know, can't attack or block alone. That's quite an interesting one that you see come up, where you know it requires to be attacking or blocking with something else. And there's a whole load of drawback cards as well. And if you were to just look at those from the point of view of a creature, I mean, there's lots and lots of these. Pirate ship. Lord of the Pit. You must sacrifice one of your own creatures during upkeep. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, yeah, it's a completely different type of drawback, but you've got things like the sort of cumulative upkeep type thing, or just some upkeep cost actually before you even start to get into cumulative upkeep, where you're having to just pay something. So here's cumulative upkeep here from Ice Age. You're just having to pay something to keep a card in play. So yeah, there's lots of different types of drawback cards in here, but this one is a drawback purely because of it can't block certain creature types or colours or whatever. In this case, it's a colour of a creature, black creatures. So I suppose you could say it is more of a restricted blocker, and a restricted blocker type is going to contain creatures that are closer in their restriction, closer to the one on the Gibbering Hyenas. That's interesting. Why cannot attack or block if an enchantment is in play? So there's all can'ts here. And if we were to look at something like, you look at say like a green 3-drop, so that colour in green, and the ID is 1, and the CMC is 3. I used to spend 8 hours. I've lost hours on before I used Scryfall. Was it the Gatherer? Just like looking at a certain drop, like looking at all the 3 CMC creatures in a certain colour and seeing, okay, well, over the years, how has that the power and toughness like changed over time? Like, what do you get for say, what do you get for a 3 CMC creature in a certain colour? So you've got things like walls where you're getting quite a high power. Oh, sorry, quite high toughness but no power. And then somewhere, because of the low power toughness, there's some additional reward. You can see there's quite a number of like 2/2s for 3. Interesting here, we've got in the same set, if you look at these, 3-drop creatures from Mirage, you have Brushwag, which is 1 and 2 green. It's a 3/2. If its blocks or is blocked, it gets -2/+2 until end of turn. So it does this strange thing where you get an increase in the toughness and a decrease in the power. So it becomes this almost like a wall in some ways, I suppose. And then you've got Joray's Centaur, which I think we've looked at before, which has flanking on it. So whenever a creature without flanking is assigned to block this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. And it can't be the target of spells or effects. So it's a 2/2 for 3, but these additional abilities here. Oh, spores. And poison counters are a thing as well in the set. 2/2 for 3. And then as we go through, I mean, an interesting thing to do is if you were to do, say, let's just look at the power. So how many of these have a power that's greater than, say, 2? It's 159. And as we go through Magic's history, you can probably see there's less and less downsides here. I mean, even if you just look at the, supposing we were to just look at, 3/2s through history. So if I do power of 3 and toughness equals 2. So we've still got 50 cards here. All the 3/2s in green through Magic's history. And just look at the overall power creep. So here we've got like a 3/2 for 3 with flash. And you could sort of see the point almost at which, was there a gradual shift? Or was it suddenly, oh yeah, there's this like super powerful creature that appears. I'm seeing some interesting centaurs actually. It's on and off throughout, as I've been doing these episodes. There's Evolve. Here I'm just looking at 3/3s for 3. There's a vanilla one. There's a Witch Stalker. You can see here the earlier stuff before the first vanilla creature crops up. In fact, that's often quite a good yardstick when you're looking at power CMC to power toughness is see where all the vanilla creatures are for that, and then just relate them to that. I find that's quite useful to do it that way. You know, like is there a, if we were to do this, like slowly working up here, what happens? Have we ever seen like a 4/4 vanilla for 3? Is that a thing? Do you ever see that? And I find even like things like vanilla creatures to be, you know, an interesting, like I say, like yardstick. So yeah, he's our 4/4s for 4. The classic one is, let me just do this. So obviously slightly underpowered. No, let me get that around the right way. And then we do that across all creatures. A good old 2/2 for 3. And we have Grey Ogre. Right, moving on. Minotaur. 3/3 for 4. Unaffected by summoning sickness. So it has haste. Hasn't seen that been reprinted. Again, you can look at it in a similar way that we've looked at the other one, but let's just see what the tags come up. So we could go through and look at all the, you know, through Magic's history, all the 3/3s for 4. It's a French vanilla. These creatures and vehicles have only keyworded abilities. So that's what a French vanilla is. Similar to Raging Minotaur. 2 and 2 red with haste. Related to Raging Minotaur. So what I'm going to do here, because we've, you know, doing this will just be basically be a repeat of what I've just done if I start looking at 3/3s for 4 through red, although it might be interesting to think, but there's something I want to look at red creatures generally. So and cards. So we have this whole thing of haste, hasty creatures. And if you do, you know, go down that rabbit hole of going, okay, well, if I do CMC 4 in red and are mono red creatures and they have haste, what do I see? A lot of cards. Well, actually, yeah, no, that would be automatically. No, hang on. Let me do this. I only want to look at creatures. 83. Anger is sprinting. There's a lightning elemental. I suddenly decided I want to look at this because 4-drops are an interesting point on the curve, I think. Particularly in mono red decks. you know, they come into play turn 4 and you can just start bashing with them. And we got here Territorial Hellkite, 6/5 for 4 with flying and haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent at random that Territorial Hellkite didn't attack during your last combat. Territorial Hellkite attacks that player this combat if able. If you can't choose an opponent this way, tap Territorial Hellkite. That was Commander 17. Wow. That's pretty interesting red 4-drops here. Glad I did track and check now. But what I wanted to do as well, let's just drop do I want to leave that in for the moment? I'm going to just take, so I'm going to work through these. So 4-drops with haste. That's our theme for this one. To muse over. So 4-drops with haste can get pretty niche in some of these rabbit holes we go down, but that's part of the fun of these episodes. I love this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, what are all the hasty 4-drops in the different colours, creatures? And this is cool actually. This wasn't planned, but this anybody that's watched the episode, various episodes is you know a very long-term friend of the channel will know this is a card that I always go, oh yeah, what's that card in white, that creature that would be really good in a deck, and I just can never remember it. It's Odric Lunarch Marshal. Yeah, it's this cool ability on it. At the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. If a creature you control has first strike, the same as chew off, blah 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 blah. Of course, this has nothing to do with Mirage, but yeah, such is the way of these episodes. So just moving through, nothing in, so hasty 4-drops is not a thing. I'm going to go through in a moment and just take out the CMC, but seeing as accidentally there we got Lunarch to come up, I just couldn't resist this bit. So let me have a look at black. Ooh, 13. You hasty 4-drops, you. Okay. Interesting modal bit on there. So 4 for 2/2 with haste and flying. Black. Oh, was it? Yeah. What's that? So that's a 3/1. Okay. Interesting card. Certainly turn up some unusual stuff in these episodes. Yeah, see. Big thing in red. Mono red 4-drop. And then green, curious about this. So 16 green cards with haste, although some of these you can see it's conditional and it's there for another reason, like we got the reflex sliver. And this one we got 5/1 for 4, but good old cumulative upkeep. Questing Beast, yes. So just going back through, if I lose this, make sure I did remember to copy that. Just go back through the colours to give us a rough balance here. So yeah, once I do that, a lot more. So we got 6 in white, and again, there's no two-coloured stuff here. There'll probably be a lot more. You get combinations with red. So blue next. So now we've got 8 as we move through, and we're not tied to a certain CMC. So 8. 44 in black. Red numbers is probably through the roof now. 379. Oh, ball lightning, yes. I remember when I cracked a foil of that. That's super nice in foil. What was the 4th edition artwork? That's interesting. Does that artwork come up anywhere else? I don't think it has, is it? Let's have a look. No. How much are those? 251. Okay. Oh, I'm glad I went off and looked down that actually. That's an interesting piece of art. And then green. 52. Yeah, there's the colour shifted one. Right, moving on. Jungle Wurm. 3 and 2 green for 5/5. So you can see here, it's in this deck definitely. It's the creatures are definitely fitting to a curve here. So we got yeah, our 5/5 5-drop. For each creature assigned to block it beyond the first, Jungle Wurm gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So that's the downside for having a 5/5 5-drop. Is that like a reverse flanking? No, that is that? Hang on. For each creature assigned to block it beyond the first, Jungle Wurm. So Jungle Wurm get, yes, that's what I thought. I read it right the first time. So flanking's the reverse of that, isn't it? Whenever a creature it loses flanking. Where are we going? Flanking? Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that has a specific term to it. Let's look at the tag. Is that Rampage? Go back to that in a moment. So, worse than Silverback Ape, which is a 5/5 for 5. Again, interesting to look at the the vanilla creatures on the same point on the curve. Hollowhenge Beast. Yeah, these are all. I mean, this one isn't. It's 2 and 2 green with kicker. When it's the battlefield, if it was kicked, it fights. Okay, so there's 2 and a green fight staple to that. Wow. Let's look at Rampage, because I don't know if Rampage has come up before. And explore this particular aspect of the game. So there's Jungle Wurm. I'll actually look at the Rampage ability. For each creature blocks it, Elvis Berserker gets +1/+1 until end of turn. For each creature assigned to block it beyond the first, -1/-1. So yeah, it's what, the reverse Rampage? And if I was to look specifically for the word Rampage rather than the tag, when this creature becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2. Okay, so Rampage is... Oh, that's right. Yeah, it scales to the Rampage value, doesn't it? So... Oh, the Rampage... Yeah, the Rampage value. So if something is Rampage 2, it's +2/+2. If something is Rampage 1, it's +1/+1. I don't know what the highest Rampage is. We have seen Guerrilla Berserkers before, actually. That they came up, didn't they, when I was going through I think Alliance's cards, actually. I seem to remember. Oh, that's Chica's Dragon. That was Rampage 4. So those are from... So yeah, Rampage was in Mirage then. Okay, so interesting how they did that. Okay. Crash of Rhinos. So further up the curve. So for 8 we get an 8/4 with trample. So French vanilla from what we've learnt so far. Copper Host Crusher. Worse than that. So what's that? 8/8 for 8 with trample and hexproof. Wow. So in terms of green cards, creature cards, if you're looking at that part of the curve, for example, so we'll say, we'll start off with CMC of 8 in green, I think, and mono green. 39 cards. Just look at oh, there's Scaled Worm. So let's look at this. Oh, of course, Verdant Force. Wow. And Wolfpack. Okay, glad I looked at this one. Oh my word, yeah, Terrastodon. Yeah, green 8 drops. Interesting stuff here. Creative Behemoth. Okay. Yeah, this definitely makes me smile. Oh, Gold Tree. Super interesting card. So that's a battlefield. You may just draw up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent put into a graveyard this way, its controller gets 3/3 green elephant creature tokens on the battlefield. Because of course you can use this against yourself. So if you really wanted to, you could blow up your own lands or any other non-creature permanent and get 3/3 green elephant creatures. It's got a Evoke on it. Pretty cool artwork on some of these. So what's that from? Oh, Portal 3 Kingdoms. Did they ever reprint her? Is there anything that's similar to that? Seven, 6. Deathcoil Wurm. Is that showing up on here? Oh, there it is, yeah. Is on the list. It's Portal Second Age. It's a pretty nice spot on the curve, isn't it, when you look at it? And of course, how can we not resist looking through the colour pie? So yeah, angels. We see in blue mainly what, big sea creatures, yeah. Oh yes. The 8-drop blue sea creature. And you got your avatars. So I wonder what we would see. Would we get any commonality in black? I'm just trying to think. Was it some sort of demons, maybe? Yeah, it's a few. Not a dragon there, but I see a number of demons. $25 of those. Moving on to red. Dragons, I suppose. 8 drops. Oh, and giant beasts. Is it mixed bag, really? Yeah. So a few dragons, one angel. Yeah, it's a bit over the map there, so not one particular creature subtype. And then of course in green, which we already looked at. So I don't know, like Rhinos of Magic, maybe I'll look in a moment, but before I do that, seeing as I was sitting here and I saw stuff come up, let me take that out. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. It's funny. 11 8-drop elementals. Pretty niche, I know, but I can't resist an elemental. And if like me, you're curious about what have we got added? Anything here? Okay, that's crazy. The other fun thing to do, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I can't resist it, is like with a creature type. I don't know if anybody does this. So, like, particularly if it's a thing you really like okay, let's look at elementals and literally going through the curve and seeing where the sort of frequency bump is. So, where do we get this large amount of elementals? And also, again, doing it even more granularly, doing it in certain colours. I can just spend ages fiddling around with stuff like this in Scryfall. Oh. I don't know either if there's I'm assuming you just use like a generic one of those sort of utility 5-colour commanders, but there is a 5-colour elemental, isn't there? It's Ordinations amongst others, yeah. So yeah, well actually I can't remember my own decks. I have a 5-colour elemental deck. Although it's not about, but I didn't put it together. It's based on something from online. But yeah. Oh. The last thing I was going to do is Rhino tribal doable? Because these questions get asked. Oh, okay. Well, there we go. I think we answered that. Do we have a Rhino general? I mean, yeah. So what colours are we in? Now, of course, Rune, green, white, blue, and black, red, green for Mr. Orfeo, the Boulder. There we go. Right, Moss Diamond. Oh yeah, I love this cycle. This is cool. So these ones, they come into play tapped, these artifacts. Tap them, add green to mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. So this was a cycle. And it's been, I suppose it's been reprinted a few times. I'm not sure exactly how. I mean, it got reprinted, what, in Commander Battle for Ball? Yeah, you can, oh yeah. You can see it's cropped up a few times in the in the core sets. But yeah, so first printing was here. Hopefully we'll take a look at these on Friday. I think I have all of these from this set. And we have looked quite a bit at mana rocks before. We've got these, you know, worse than Cold Steel Heart. So, but we will look at some 2-drop mana rocks. I think that'll be, it's quite an interesting, again, point on the curve in terms of what you get. Obviously, you know, worse than Mox Emerald. So 0 to cast, tap it, add green to your mana pool. This 2 to cast comes into play tapped. When it untaps, you add green to your mana pool, play this ability as a mana source. And we've got things like Coppermere. This is interesting because it's obviously, this is attached to a body. It's same cost, does the same thing. It doesn't come into play tapped, but it's a 1/1. It's a creature, so it has summoning sickness. So, yeah. So that ticks a number of boxes, the Coppermere. So, you know, it's a mana dork as well. So, but what can we say about the 2-drop mana rock? Well, there's 49 of them, and I suspect, as you'll see here, there are a number of cycles. So there's our diamonds. Then we've got other things like Mind Stone, you know, just not part of a cycle of other rocks in the various colours. We've got Grim Monolith, we've got Star Compass. So you'll see there's a few, you know, 2-drop mana rocks which allow you to produce mana of any colour. Then we got these interesting ones, the talismans. So again, 2 drops. These can be tapped for colourless mana. If you want to tap them for the particular 2 colours, there's 5 of these, and these are, well, they allied colours. Then it will do you 1 damage. Pendad Prism, and of course we have the signets for all the colours, all 10, and of course they were spread out through the particular set or the block, so original Ravnica block. So you'll notice you had 4 of them in the first set in the block, then was it 3 of them in the following set, and then the remaining 3 in the last set. And we've got Cold Steel Heart, Prismatic Lens. So there's ones here that filter mana as well. So it's again interesting the way that, you know, the different ways that the 2-drop mana rocks work. You get things like Thought Vessel, which just produces colourless mana, but has this interesting ability where, you know, you have no maximum hand size, and that first appeared in a Commander product, Commander 15. And some more talismans here as well for the what's that? The Modern Horizons set. And would that be, I'm assuming these are the enemy coloured ones, because what these were the Yeah, the allied colour one. So that's, you know, all 10 in all the different 2 colour combinations. And of course Arcane Signet, which is funny because when this came out in, was it Throne of Eldraine? Yeah, this was like a 2-drop mana rock that generated, you know, perfect for Commander at common. And I remember the price going up, and then it's been reprinted a few times. Now, although I don't know if you'd want it in this in a set, in a regular set. I suppose unless you wanted to encourage what 5 colour decks. Or Wooburg decks, maybe. Yeah, but another area where I can just spend hours just durdling around, looking at, you know, the different points on the curve and where you get these sweet spots for certain types of mana rocks. This is a really interesting card, this, you know, Filwar Stone, the way it's done here. So taps add 1 major mana pool. This mana may be of any colour that an opponent's land can produce. This ability is played as an interrupt. Now if you want the cheapest version of these in their original artwork is the 4th edition one. The black border version, which is in the dark, is $13. Was reprinted in 5th edition, and it's been, yeah, this is obviously the modern, the artwork for this. That first appeared, I'm trying to remember which core set, so was it 9th? Yeah, that's the Magic the Gathering Online one there. But I don't know if this artwork's ever been reprinted in a modern border. You get this, which is the Secret Lair drop. It's obviously different artwork. It'd be interesting to see how that would look in a modern border, actually. Grinning Totem. Turns up as a time-shifted card, actually. It was reprinted in 6th edition. 4 to cast, 2 tap, sacrifice Grinning Totem, search target opponent's library for a card and exile it. Then that player shuffles until the beginning of your next upkeep. You may play that card at the beginning of your next upkeep. If you haven't played it, put it into its owner's graveyard. So, interesting card, because you can see how this might deal with combo decks. But you get to play the card. Now we've seen disruptors before like this. Was it Jester's Cap? But that does a lot more cards. But this has interesting, interesting tutoring. Tutor from opponent. Oh, that's a cool term. Theft cast. There's quite a lot of those. Tutor from opponent. There's 17 of those. And I'm assuming a lot of them are going to appear in blue. What do you reckon? Of course, Jace does it. Or that particular Jace. Is that the only artifact? artifact. Let's just go back a bit. Curious now. So theft cast, tutor to exile, tutor card. Well, there's load. I say 96 things that tutor any card. Is it something that one would see a lot on artifacts? I don't know. Okay, let me just try that. Would help if I actually spelled type correctly, wouldn't it? So again, remember with this one, you're tutoring your or a opponent's library. These are cards that tutor other things as well, other locations. So this one you're searching your own library, this one your own library. This is from Unsets. Own library, 3 wishes. Your library. Your hand in your library. Your library. Okay, so pretty unique card in some respects. I mean, I suspect there's going to be loads. So. I'm just curious here, like, cards that really just do any form of library manipulation, regardless of what it is. For, you know, around that particular spot. You know, the reason why I'm interested in completely colourless artifacts is, you know, the sort of things that could be played in any deck. Yeah, that's interesting card. Time spiral, time shifted. Okay. Armor of Thorns. Again, only, yeah, that's an online set. So in terms of paper magic, only in Mirage. You want to choose to play Armor of Thorns. Oh yeah, these, what do they call them? Enchantments. So you can choose to play it as an instant. If you do, you have to bury it at the end of turn. So it's a pump spell. It can only be played on a non-black creature. But it's this interesting thing where, so it says as though it had flash. So you cast it as though it had flash. If you cast it any time a sorcery couldn't have been cast, the control of the permanent becomes sacrifices at the beginning of the next cleanup step. Yeah. Interesting wording on the errated text. Okay. So yeah, you get a 2-drop 2/2 pump spell if you choose to play it as an instant. And yeah, that's it. Enstantment. That was part of a cycle. Which by the looks of things, only that one has ever been reprinted in Vintage Masters. And just looking at them, you've got the black ones. What's +3 -1? This is a +1/+0 with first strike, +0/+1 with flying, and this one is gains protection from a colour of your choice. So 4 out of the 5 did some form of pump. I mean, they're all in their instant form. They're all combat tricks. And again, you might be able to spot, if you're familiar with cards in Magic's history, that what the instant version of this card, if there is one, what that is. So here you'd be looking for an instant that just does effectively this. Same with the others here. And of course other cards that might do it at a lower cost. I'll come back to that in a moment. I haven't quite finished with this yet. Favour of Shakai. 3 in a green. Okay, quite a bit more expensive. There you go, giant growth with set mechanic. That's an interesting tack. Okay. Substance, what's that? Substance is an obsolete static ability, has no effect at all. Okay, it existed briefly only as a technical detail to support implementing a few cards in Magic Online's Mirage release. Okay, I didn't know that. Gains flash, delayed triggered ability. Okay. Thirst, so again, another card only in Mirage. This is why with a lot of these I wanted to sort of focus on this, because these have never been, a number of these have never been reprinted in paper. So Thirst, 2 in a blue. When Thirst comes into play, tap enchanted creature. During your upkeep, pay blue or bury Thirst. Enchanted creature does not untap during its controller's untap phase. So it's going to be interesting to see what the tags are on this. Drawback, lockdown. That's probably I'm most interested in. Although lockdown creature maybe. Tap a creature, upkeep cost, and it was colour shifted to melancholy in, what set would that be? Planar Chaos. Yeah, the colour shifted slot. Lockdown creature. I think I know what I'm going to see here. 86 of them. We will see. It's always nice to get surprises. So you notice all the ones here, it's like it doesn't untap. So you've got a lot of stuff in blue that does that. We can probably think of similar auras in white, but the wording is slightly different. So if you look at, let me just do that, and we do pacifism. So enchanted creature can't attack or block, so hold that in your head a moment. Whereas a lockdown creature thing, particularly thirst, so it taps the target creature, and then the fact that it's tapped prevents it from doing stuff. Now if you sort of compare the two, enchanted creature can't attack or block, whereas this, by tapping it down, you're also going to nerf any tap abilities on it, which pacifism doesn't do. Also interesting to see, you know, cropping up in, say, green, and also the fact that the tap down ability generally, you know, you'll see it on a number of different creatures, and often the creature might have, you know, the creature itself is tapped and it taps another creature. And I think I've said this before, I often find decks of those in like super annoying to play against. And then finally, Barbed Foliage. Again, only in Mirage. Whenever a creature attacks you, it loses flanking until end of turn. Now, I can see why. Whenever a creature without flying attacks you, Barbed Foliage deals 1 damage to it. So this is a regular enchantment, it's not an aura. So it just sits in play. So, you know, good against flanking decks, and I suppose, yeah, decks that don't have flyers in them. Oh, and whenever a creature without flying attacks you, Barbed Foliage deals 1 damage. Oh dear me. That is not good. What? Yeah. I misread that. I thought it did damage to an opponent. So is that the downside? Yeah. The downside for getting something that will block, or sorry, nerf flanking, hate flanking. Removal creature burn. Oh, sorry. No, I was, yeah, my brain's very foggy this morning. So yeah, no. Let's take that all back. So whenever a creature without flying attacks you, Barbed Foliage deals 1 damage to it. So it's pinging the creature. My apologies. Dear me. Getting so relaxed I'm not reading the card right. Which happens. Colour break, hate attacker, hate flanking, hate set mechanic. Removal creature burn. Yeah, I thought that was weird. Like, how good is flanking that it would to it damage to the flying creature, not you. Oh, clearly hate flanking is not a thing in Magic, whereas hate attacker is. What's a colour break? Cards known to break the modern colour pie, granting a colour access to something it shouldn't be able to do. Oh, I see. I shouldn't be able to do that. Tax on attacking. Oh yeah, elephant grass. I wonder if there was generally, I mean, I suppose this is actually spread out quite widely. Wrongly or rightly or wrongly, I always got the impression that as through Magic's history, there has been a move towards having creature combat, and so any cards which basically were fun police for creature combat were dialed back. But I don't, and maybe this is a bit too niche of a card to really see that, but I don't know if I'm actually really seeing that here. But that was my impression, is that there was a sort of dial back on cards which did those sort of things because they impeded the fun of swinging for damage that WotC wanted to encourage. I suppose hate attacker would be a better thing to look at with particular reference to permanence, thinking about it. So if we just do maybe look at some of the, so we've got 36 enchantments that do that to some degree. Oh damn, what have I just done there? Was silly of me. I suppose it's quite spread out, and I wonder how that is with creatures. Oh, creature, sorry. Yeah, this giant trapdoor spider has that ability on it. Dwarven Sea Clan. These are interesting. See a few in the block there, and then we've got the in Tempest as well. Wood Trapper. What about artifacts to do that sort of thing? Some of these we would have seen already because they're creatures. In fact, there's quite a number here. So how widespread was that in Mirage generally? It's white, green, and why is red, green there? What's this? Three tap and untap creature you control. An erring sling deals an amount of damage equal to that creature's power to target attacking or blocking creature with flying. Okay then. So there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that slightly different episode of Deck Musings, where we were looking at a particular interesting point in Magic's history, where we have the Pro Tour Atlanta, where the only Pro Tour to ever host an individual sealed deck competition. And like I said, unfortunately I could only find one sealed deck from that tournament which was listed. But what I have done is I'm going to include a link to the final between Frank Adler and Darwin Castle. I think it also mentions there's another reason why. Yeah, there was a mess up in the quarterfinals as well. I'll include links to all of these so you can read a little bit more about the whole period around there. Like I said, the links here, the only trouble with MTG Wiki is a lot of the links are broken now. And they've been broken for a long while, actually, as a result of Wizards of the Coast massive redesigning their site. And you'll come across this all over the web, actually, anywhere that references websites that are quite old, that reference WotC materials. You'll find a lot of the links are broken. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.